Are you considering living in the Back Bay of Boston? You may have heard of the Back Bay from a Hollywood movie or a TV show, or just recently when you were planning your move to Boston. Whatever the case, there is a lot that the Back Bay has to offer. But most people don't know enough about the ins and outs of the city to make an informed decision about if that's where they're going to live someday. I just recently helped a couple who was coming from New York City, and they wanted to get a pied-à-terre in the city of Boston just to be closer to their daughter who goes to school in Cambridge. Here's the thing. I'll tell you a little bit more at the end of this video about how it all played out, but the reality was when they arrived in Boston for our visit to go walk through all the different neighborhoods, what happened at the beginning of the day was very different than what happened at the end of the day. And it made me realize that there's so many things about the Back Bay and also Beacon Hill that people from outside of Boston just don't know. So that's why I decided to make this video. So in this video, I'll be talking about what the Back Bay has to offer, whether you're thinking about renting a place or buying your forever home, as well as why people want to actually live in the Back Bay as opposed to just visiting from time to time, and everything that you're going to need to know if you're thinking about living here. Hey, I'm Katie Norton, a realtor in Massachusetts, and this channel is all about helping you know what it's like living in the greater Boston area. So subscribe for more content, and if you're thinking about moving to Back Bay or any of the neighborhoods in Boston, please reach out. So what does the Back Bay have to offer? Well, first of all, let's just give you a little bit of geography about where the Back Bay is in Boston. So the basic location, it's almost if you're looking at a rectangle, and you have Mass Ave, Massachusetts Ave at one end, and you have Arlington Street at the other. In between those two major routes that go through Boston, you're going to have vertical and horizontal roads that go connected between Mass Ave and Arlington. You're going to have roads that go between Beacon Street and Huntington Ave and a little bit further. But the reality is it's basically a rectangle. So let's talk a little bit about the differences of these streets. A couple of the streets are going to be your typical neighborhood streets. You've got brownstones, you've got condos, you've got that sort of neighborhood lifestyle of living. If you're looking for that, you're going to want to be living on Commonwealth Ave, also known as Com Ave. You're going to look at Beacon Street, you're going to look at Marlborough Street. If you're looking for more of that in the city lifestyle, like you're living upstairs from a restaurant, you're living around the corner from some luxury retailers, you're going to want to live on one of the high-rise buildings with a ton of amenities, and those are going to be located closer on Boylston Street, Newbury Street, Huntington Ave, so forth and so on. Let's break it down a little bit further. If you're looking for that neighborhood lifestyle and you do choose one of these streets, you are realistically looking at somewhere between $3 and $12 million. You could be living in a brownstone that's all to yourself. That's going to be 4,000, 5,000 square feet with 5 floors with a little bit of green space for the kids, for the dogs, for whatever you need it for. But you could be looking at upwards of, $11 or $12 million and higher, depending on the renovations. You could also be looking at one of these older brownstones that have been renovated into condos. And so now we're looking at a first floor, a second floor, third floor, fourth floor walk-ups that are older with beautiful charm and character, but you're going to get that, more quaint. Maybe it's a 1 or 2 bedroom condo. Maybe it's only 1,000 square feet. You're still going to be paying about $1.8 million and up for those. Now, if you're thinking about renting, it's a whole different story. So we'll talk about a little bit about that later. If you're living in one of these neighborhoods, it is just, I don't know what the word is, quintessential Boston. You are going to walk down the sidewalks. You're going to see neighbors. You're going to see people. It's busy, but not crazy, if that makes sense. So people are jogging. They're riding their bikes. They might be just running to the grocery store. It's very neighborhood centric. These are the type of places that when you're decorating for Halloween, there is some competition. Christmas window boxes are beautiful. The lights just, when you drive through there, it's just extra special at night. So this is what draws people to this neighborhood portion of the Back Bay. If you're more leaning towards the hustle and bustle of the Back Bay, so you're thinking, I want to live in one of these high rises with all the amenities that come with it, you could live on the 28th floor of a building and overlook the Charles River. You could overlook all south of Boston. You could see the North Shore. You're going to have views for days. Once you head downstairs and you're out in the hustle and bustle, you could be walking next to the fashionistas of the world, And sometimes even the homeless people are right there. It is a true city lifestyle. So you walk outside your door, you've got a coffee shop, you've got the grocery store, you've got the big box stores. You could jump over and go to Apple. You could run over and go to any athletic club that you're looking for. So there's just something for everyone. The restaurant scene in the Back Bay is like nowhere else. So in these videos, I like to talk about my experiences with these different neighborhoods. And so I don't actually live in the Back Bay, but guess what? I have been visiting there since I was a little kid. And that's the thing. If you don't live in the Back Bay of Boston, the Back Bay feels more like an experiential trip. So as an example, on the holidays, we would take a day and go into the Back Bay and go shopping. When I talk about shopping in the Back Bay, I'm talking about every single type of shopping you can imagine, whether it's luxury goods or just little trinkets or the grocery store or homemade mom and pop stuff. They have something for everyone. One of the biggest attractions in the Back Bay is the Prudential Center and Copley Square. These are two indoor malls, just what they sound like, an indoor mall. You literally park in a parking garage and you go up the elevator and suddenly you are exposed to every brand name you can imagine. So sometimes it's a little overwhelming, and to be honest, I like to choose one or the other. I can't possibly do them both in one day. And I always like to finish up those shopping excursions with a bite to eat. And, they have everything from California Pizza Kitchen to Italy to Capitol Grill and everything in between. So when I think about destination shopping, I like to head into the Back Bay. I find parking in a parking garage and I go to one of these malls. There is nothing more fun. And a funny story about that is my husband and his friends, they do what they call their gentleman's lunch every December 23rd. And I'll give you a guess why. They like to go to the Capitol Grill. That just happens to be one of their all-time favorite restaurants. Sometimes don't see each other all year long. And they gather at this restaurant. But the real reason is because they find it very easy for each of them when they're done eating to scatter and go to all the different shops that they can find that if they need to buy gifts, whether it's for their mother, their wife, their daughter, their partner, whoever, they can easily find something for everyone in that spot. So I like it when my husband says he's got his gentleman lunch planned because I know that I'm getting a cute little gift for Christmas. As you've probably seen in some of my other videos, I talk a lot about what it's like to live in the suburbs of Boston. But really, why would somebody want to live in the Back Bay? I'll tell you why. There is a convenience like no other. In the Back Bay of Boston, you can easily access Logan International Airport. You can access the MBTA trains, which can bring you all the way to Washington, D.C. if you want to go. You can access all the major routes in Massachusetts, whether it's the Mass Pike or 93 South or 93 North. These are all very accessible. You're almost right in the center of Boston, North Shore, South Shore, and Metro West. So living in the Back Bay is sort of this like convenience factor for people. A lot of buildings, a lot of workplaces, a lot of corporate jobs are located in the Back Bay. So super convenient if you are in a situation where you have to be at work early and you want to just walk. What are some of the other reasons to live in the Back Bay? I actually have a few friends who decided to raise their families in the Back Bay. And here's what happened. They loved living in the city so much that when they started looking at the suburbs outside of the city, they just decided they just couldn't find that city living. And they were willing to sacrifice maybe the bigger closet or the bigger kitchen or the bigger backyard just to have that in the city lifestyle that they wanted to raise their kids with. Plenty of schools. I don't need to go into the school systems. They are part of the Boston public school system. But the reality is a lot of the people in the Back Bay have smaller private schools, charter schools. And if you need any information on any of the schools in Boston, just give me a call. Think about it this way. If it's a rainy Saturday afternoon and you're looking for something to do, the reality is if you live in the Back Bay, you do not even have to get in your car and drive anywhere. You can easily pop over to a movie theater, pop into a museum. You could take a duck tour. I'll talk about that another time. There are tons of trolley tours around Boston because the reality is the Back Bay is really a tourist attraction when it comes to Boston. So if you're living there, you're going to get all of the sort of amenities that you would get if you were just visiting Boston for the first time. In fact, a lot of times people who live in the Back Bay say that there's so much to do that they barely have done everything that there is. So yeah, that would be one reason that I would want to live in Boston, maybe as an empty nester. And I would definitely choose the Back Bay as one of the places that we would do as an empty nester. So the thing about the Back Bay is there is so much to offer. I can't even go into detail about the amount of restaurants, the amount of retail, the amount of great schools, the amount of shopping, museums, attractions. So if you need to know any more about that, please just give me a call. Let's get down to basics here. If you want to live in the Back Bay, what do you need to know? You need to actually know which kind of lifestyle that you want to live. Do you want to have that neighborhood lifestyle with the old school charm of the brownstones? Or do you want to have that hustle and bustle lifestyle of living right in the city? And then both of them have access to each other. It's just, what do you want as your primary living scenario? You need to be realistic with yourself. Do you want to rent or buy? If you want to buy, what is your budget? Because looking on Google and Zillow and all these other things is not really going to give you a realistic idea of what your budget is compared to what the lifestyle you want is. This is where I go back to that story about the New York City couple that came in for the weekend. They were looking for a pied-à-terre that they could come and visit their daughter who lives in Cambridge. They had been looking on Google. We had been sending them some information, but they just kept going back to these lower priced condos. They had it in their head that they could get something for $1.3 million in the heart of the Back Bay or Beacon Hill. And when something in Beacon Hill came up the first time, they didn't jump on it because it was higher priced. A teammate and I decided we needed to bring them into the city and actually spend some time with them walking around. So we arranged for them to come for the weekend, and I literally walked them through the places that they thought that they had seen online that they had chosen, not things that I would have chosen for them in other parts of the city. And then they said, we just keep going back to maybe we want to live in the Back Bay or Beacon Hill. And so I said to them, let's just go for a walk. It was a gorgeous Boston day, and so we just started walking through Beacon Hill, and then we made our way over to the Back Bay. As we walked down the streets in the Back Bay, they could not get enough of that neighborhood lifestyle. They realized that they were trying to get what they were looking for online were these high rises with amenities and things, but what they really fell in love with was just walking down the road and seeing your neighbors walking their dogs or going to the grocery store right on the corner. So they realized that when I send them now, when I was then going to send them some information and it was maybe higher priced, it was because it was higher priced because they were choosing a lifestyle, not just a house or a condo. So I just think it's really important if you or anyone you know is thinking about moving to Boston, specifically the Back Bay or Beacon Hill, please get in touch. Please reach out. Please let me show you around, because it's really about being in the moment and really getting a sense and a feel for what you want to live. I can show you hundreds of places online, but you'll feel it and you'll know it when you get there. So if you're thinking about buying or renting in the Back Bay of Boston, or anywhere for that matter, please reach out because I would love to help you. As you can see from this video, and as you can see from my excitement, there is so much to talk about the Back Bay. And so based on my lifetime experiences living in Boston and visiting Boston, I think that I would be the best resource. I would love to help you as I've helped many before you. I hope this video was helpful for you. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.